Hi team, Coach Alexa here. So I've got a few one-to-one runners and a few charity groups of runners who've been building up towards this weekend's London Marathon, and quite a few of the conversations I've been having in Facebook groups and on phone calls have been balancing out a little bit of the paranoia that is flying around. So just anxieties, worries, crazy dreams about forgetting your running shoes that start to creep in these final few days before a big race you've been aiming for. So I thought I'd share a few little thoughts, tips about brain management over these next few days, because the training at this point is done. For better or for worse, regardless of how it's gone, there's not a lot more you can do now from a physical point of view, other than focusing on rest, recovery, sleep, and good nutrient-rich foods. So the next few days and on race day comes down to a lot to executing your plan in terms of nutrition and all of that sort of stuff and timings for race day morning, but also managing that brain. Now the brain is quite a powerful thing, right? In endurance sport, there's often a saying that you run the first part of a race with your legs, then with your heart, and then with your brain. And one of the reasons behind that is that a large part of our brain is millennia old and has not changed that much from when we were, climbing trees and before we became, sort of two-legged articulate creatures. And that part of our brain is trying to look after us, and keep us as safe as possible. And the way it would do that kind of in the wild, so to speak, is don't burn energy when you don't need to be burning energy. Do it for a reason, to find food or to protect your family or to find a mate. And eat when you've got the food, because you might not have food tomorrow. So this is why people find it very difficult to motivate themselves to exercise for recreation sometimes, because there's part of our brain that goes, why are we doing this? This is pointless. We might need to run away from tigers tomorrow. And why we eat cake when there's cake there, because again, there's part of our brain that thinks, well, there might not be any food for the next 4 days after this, so it's there, eat it. Perfectly good strategy in the wild, not quite such a helpful strategy in the modern cultures that we live in these days. So the reason I say that is that the brain will probably, towards the end of a marathon, be trying to gently and then maybe slightly more forcefully persuade you to slow down or stop. Because as far as it's concerned, this is a bit daft now. You've been running for 20 miles or whatever. You're not running for any particular reason as far as it's concerned. It's not a life or death or food or, sort of shelter or family protection reason. And it would much rather you slowed down or you stopped, just in case there's some life or death emergency later in the day, or you have to, run away from a herd of elephants tomorrow. It doesn't know that that's not going to happen. So it will be trying to persuade you out of it. So let's talk a little bit about some tactics to help in that situation. And they can help actually with the sort of paranoia and those pre-race anxieties and nerves in the build-up to the race as well. So there's a great book that I read a few years ago called The Chimp Paradox. And this book talks about this at a very basic oversimplification model, but I think it's still quite a good model. Got 3 areas of our brain. Autopilot, which does stuff like breathing, digesting, healing our body after an injury or a tough training session. Things that it's doing all in the background that luckily we don't have to think about because there's quite a lot going on in the background. And it also, you can put stuff into autopilot. So one of the examples I often give is cleaning my teeth. I don't have to motivate myself to clean my teeth. I don't have to remind myself to clean my teeth. It's been that ingrained by doing it every morning and evening for however many decades now, that it's part of what I've programmed into autopilot. 2 other parts of your brain that this book talks about. One of them, as you can possibly guess by the book title, The Chimp Paradox, is called the chimp. So this is a bit more of a sort of animalistic type of the brain. So, I recognise this from the behaviour of my dog. She's very in the moment. She reacts to situations instantaneously. It's the part of our brain that as humans tends to be a little bit more kind of switched on or triggered. That's a bit of an overused word. By sort of sudden situations, unexpected things. It's what's behind anger, fear, frustration, upset. But it's also what gives us those gut reactions, you know, when you get a bit of a spidey sense that something's not right. That's normally our chimp picking up on things that our kind of human part of our brain hasn't noticed or seen. It picks up on body language and, you know, sort of smells and changes in the environment and things like that. And then there's the kind of adult human part of our brain where we apply intelligence, we apply our past experiences to things, we think about things, we consider the impact on our future selves, on others, all of that sort of stuff. The chimp's not so bothered about that. It's very much living in the here and now and very concerned just about things like, you know, food and procreation and safety, basically. So the chimp will be having a little bit of a toys out the pram anxiety moment or moments across this week, potentially. And one of the things you can do to help with that is to acknowledge what it's saying, kind of like you'd look after a toddler. And a bit of a toddler sort of meltdown, or trying to avoid the toddler meltdowns, is make it feel like it's being listened to a little bit. So if it comes up with these really sort of random things that might go wrong, or things that you're worrying about, make a note of them on a bit of paper. Some of them might be useful. If you keep having a dream about forgetting your running shoes, then maybe start packing your bag now, putting out a kit layout now, so it's all in one place and you've got your shoes there. You know, maybe ask your friend or a person that you're travelling up with, or put a reminder on your phone, race day morning, remember shoes. You know, do a couple of things that will help practically, but will also help calm that inner chimp or inner toddler down a little bit. And maybe if it's coming up with something really weird and wacky, still write it on the list and still, you know, have a chat to your inner toddler or yourself and go, yeah, thank you for raising that. A little bit out there, but, you know, thanks, I've borne it in mind, I've looked into it, all good, thank you. And we can also use this tactic for the race. You know, in the latter half of the race or those final few miles, that inner chimp might have a little bit of a meltdown at some point. It might try and make you stop, slow down, walk, might make you feel a little bit emotional. And again, talking to it with a little bit of care, listening to it, but pausing and letting your adult brain talk to that inner sort of worry as if you were talking to a friend who you were running with. We're very good at supporting others, but we're often not good at supporting ourselves in the same way. So think like you're treating that inner toddler gently and supportively, going, okay, now I hear what you're saying now, but what we're going to do is we're maybe not going to slow down, or we're going to slow down a little bit, but we're not going to stop. And we'll have a take on a bit of energy, and we'll have a little bit of a drink. And we'll maybe relax our shoulders, or we'll chat to somebody who's running past, or we'll look at the crowd and get a bit of an oomph and a boost from them, and you know, then we'll be able to keep going, or we're only going to keep going to that next mile marker, and then we'll see how we feel. You know, a little bit of negotiation like you would do with a toddler or a teenager. So using those little tips, you know, be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself. Be supportive of yourself and G yourself up a little bit, get yourself excited and energised, and enjoy the best marathon in the world if you're lucky enough to be running London this weekend. I hope it all goes brilliantly, but remember, you know, using our brains to our advantages, using your powers of negotiation with that other bit of your brain that might not be so bought into the idea, can be really, really useful on race day. I hope that's helpful.